Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios on a nice, bright, sunny Sunday morning. It rained all day here yesterday and some of Friday night, so we stayed in the hobby room and got some work done on the Beetle. So that's what this video is going to be for. This is an update on where we're at now. I went back through and looked, and my last video that I've done on it was actually the kind of the introduction to this project was about 10 days ago. So, you know, I've been working pretty steady on this thing, and I've made a lot of progress. I went back and scanned through that video to see what all I had, you know, talked about and touched on as far as the model. And so I got everything kind of cleaned up in here a little bit first thing this morning. And we'll go ahead and bring the camera down, do the handheld thing again, and show you where the Beetle's at right now, and explain a few things about it. Go from there. So bear with me just a minute. We'll get the camera reset and we'll take a look at the 1/16 scale Revell Pro Street Beetle project. And it's coming in. Don't have the wheels and tires on it this time around, but I do have it mocked up on the jig. I did change the jig a little bit. I had to move the ride height around just a little bit. Looking pretty good there. Real happy with that. Got some more body work done on it. I do have the running boards just kind of mocked into place right now. I've got to do some adding some material to them and getting the flow a little bit better with the body. They don't fit as good as I want them to. Another thing that I've been working on that I touched on in the last video on it was the transmission and drive shaft tunnel. It is not done yet. It is still in being sanded and, you know, little spots here and there filled on it. When it's all done, it will be a polished aluminum alclad finish on that, and it will also have the 16th scale Zeus fasteners on it, so that you can take it in and out, because in this car it's very tight in the interior. So I'm struggling a lot trying to get all the parts and pieces that I want to get inside this car. So that's the transmission tunnel and the drive shaft tunnel. We'll move on around back here. Now this is still some rough work that I'm working on. You can see the notches there in the back. That is actually sort of in the location that on the later Beetles they had to notch out for the exhaust, but what those are the notches for the wheelie bars. And I put tubing in there, and that's actually a half 180 degree tunnel on each side that's going to go up. Now I haven't cut the frame rails there yet, and I haven't finished off the end of the tubs. That's going to be something that I work on today. And then when we do another update, I'll show you how all that came out, because the chassis itself is just about ready to go into final primer and then into paint. So hopefully before I go back to work on this holiday weekend, I'm off tomorrow also, I will have an update where you will see the chassis in its final color. So next we'll move on around to something that I did put a lot of time into so far, and that is the engine assembly. I went ahead and scratch built an electric water pump, billet style, for this. I also scratch built the MSD style front mount distributor for a big block Chevrolet, and I had to move it up a little bit over where, you know, normally a distributor would set. It's just one of them things that happened. I kind of run out of room with things, and, you know, it is what it is. It looks the part, so we're going to go with it. As you can see, it does have the plug wires, the spark plug boots, all that stuff is in there. I did a little bit of work on the carburetors. We're getting them looking pretty decent. I do have the linkage and everything for them, so a lot more work to go on those, but they're getting there. And of course, you can see the polished alclad, polished aluminum on the blower and the heads, the valve covers, all that stuff's been done with polished aluminum. Scratch built water neck back in there, and also I think I mentioned in the last video the scratch built fluid damper balancer is on the front, and we did get the front motor plate installed onto the engine and the mounts put onto the cage. So that's not quite finished yet, but getting closer. And then I don't know if we can get zoomed in on it or not, but let me see if I can get a shot up underneath of the fender well here. Now bear with me on this because like I say, this is still rough work. There we go. If you look back in there at the heads, you will notice that the plug wires are there with the spark plug boots. The plugs are in this engine, and everything I looped down under the headers just to keep everything pretty clean and tidy. And we ran them through underneath the edge of the motor plate, and then they come up to the distributor itself. And I did a crab cap style on this so I can get the plug wires to come out each side to go to what bank they need to go to without a mess of wires going every which direction. So that's the engine. Pretty happy with that so far. Something else that I did over on Facebook that a lot of people really seem to enjoy is the header. And this is all scratch built. I used 3/32 what was this stuff? Rosin core solder. And very easy to bend, works very well. Highly recommend that stuff over like the acid core or the solid core. It's very easy to straighten out if you make a mistake on a bend, and it just works well. So we use the solder on the main tubes. Now these are set up to be equal length headers. All the tubes are the same size. I basically started at the collector when I built the headers and came forward. So any excess, like on the two center tubes there, you can see were added into bins and then into the head. It has an aluminum flange on it that has been drilled for the fasteners to go into the head. The collector is actually made out of shrink sleeve. Before that went on, where the tubes all come together, I actually had to take a little bit of putty and smooth out that area there to fill in between the tubes so that the header collector kept its shape. And then if you move on back a little bit, you'll see the collector flange there. There's one bolt sticking through it that's just in there just to get the scale, figure out what size bolt I wanted to use. But that will be cut off. It will have a nut on it. There'll be 3 of them. And then the cone that you see on the back there, that's actually, I put that into my drill and turned that down and actually made the cone to reduce into the exhaust. And I've already had the exhaust fitted on there. It'll slide up over it, and then there'll also be a clamp that I got to scratch build, all the muffler clamps on that. But after we got all that done, I went ahead and primed and painted this thing, and I sprayed it down with polished aluminum from Alclad. Did some heat staining on it. And I don't know if the camera will zoom in here real close to it, but it does have some blue, clear blue and clear yellow heat staining on it. And then that was a little too stark for me, a little too bold. So what I did is I went back in and actually sprayed a very, very light coat of polished aluminum over top of all of that, and then buffed it out. So it came out pretty good. We're pretty happy with the headers. And some people want me to do kind of a tutorial on that, and that's something that we're thinking about doing here in the near future. So stay tuned for that. Next thing that we've been working on is the nitrous bottle assembly. I do have this in paint right now. This is a candy blue from Spastics, and it has a silver base underneath of it. And Sandy's getting ready to print me out the NOS decal for today, and then we will detail paint the valve and get that all back into clear coat and start making the mounts for it, and that'll be ready to go. So that's the nitrous bottle. And let me set some of this stuff over here to the side, get it out of the way. Next, last time you seen the rear end, it was actually in primer. It is starting to go together now. The tube sticking out by the wheel centers there, all that needs to be cut off. I'm just fitting for the back spacing right now. So you'll see a little bit of scratch paint there, but that all gets cut off. That's the lower bars, the wheelie bars that were built. I think I showed them in the first video. They do have the RB Motion fasteners in them, and also the aftermarket wheelie bar wheels with the holes in those that I enlarged a little bit. But as you can see, the color on the rear end there, that's a custom mix color that I done from Spastics. It is a pretty simple color, really. You can get close to this by using just straight out of the bottle Spastics paints. You can use their ground coat, which is a silver metallic base, and then that is a candy apple red over top of that. This does have a twist in it. It does have a gold pearl overcoat, kind of like a mid coat, I guess you could say, and then it is cleared with TS13, straight clear after that. And I'm starting to get the 4-link bars and all that stuff kind of mocked up and into place. Once we get the chassis painted, this will all go into position. So that's what the rear end is looking like. And the next thing that we have, and probably the last thing for this update, is the seats. The last time that you seen the seats, they were as the one is here on the left-hand side. This is as cast, exactly how it came out of the mold when I done it. And the one that is in tan there is the seat that I decided to go ahead and get prepped. And if you look up into the headrest, you will see that there's a VW emblem in there. I actually did that with a photo etch emblem glued to the straight to the resin. And then you just kind of build up around the edge of it to soften it up. And then I took the hobby knife in between the VW letters and carved that area out and smoothed it real good. And then we did a couple more modifications. You'll see another notch out there on the side of the seat, on the right side of the seat. That is actually for the door bar because it's so tight inside this little Beetle. And on this other seat here, it will be notched on the left side. So they're coming along pretty good. Real happy with the seats. They're looking decent. They're not finished yet, but this is the interior color that we're going with. I still have to do, you know, some two-toning on this. I'm going to be doing some sheen changes, and I was going to do a video on the Revell Bronco on how I was going to go about doing the texture on the seats, but I think what we'll do is we'll roll that video into the Beetle since I'll be doing the same thing. Down through the center will actually be a cloth, simulated cloth insert, and then the sides and the headrest and all that stuff will be simulated leather. So there is two different sheens going on there on the real product. So we're going to try to simulate that in a model. So that's what everything looks like so far. Like I say, real happy with the progress. It's coming along good. Trying to get this thing finished up for the show coming up the end of October. So, but that's about all we've got for now. I just wanted to do a quick update for everybody, let you know how it's coming along. I want to thank everybody for all the nice comments and all the support of Showtime Studios. And we'll keep you updated on how this thing rolls along. So until next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.